Web Show for Australia Day in 2009, and this is a perfect example of what I want the show to be about, which is amazing stories. You never know where you're going to find them, and Joe Esposito is certainly living one. Best friend of the King. Some incredible stuff, and here's an example from Larry King off YouTube.
Tonight, the truth about Elvis. Intimate stories about an American legend. From somebody who saw it all, the addictions, the divorce, the diets that didn't work. Our exclusive guest, Elvis's army buddy, best man at his wedding, Paul Vera at his funeral, Joe Esposito, the King's closest friend, who was at Graceland when he died, shares private memories and personal pictures. Remembering the real Elvis, next on Larry King Live.
So there you go, some great clips off YouTube, Larry King Live and Joe Esposito, but it was great to have him in the flesh on the Gold Coast. There he is at Broadbeach with his wife and Brian from the Daiquiri Group, and it was through Brian the interview came about. Joe now going to be doing some work with Brian and taking their brands to the world, and you can check it out there on the website, thedaiquirigroup.com. But I mean, where do you start with the story about Elvis Presley? The man is just the king, one of the greatest figures in the 20th century, so it was great to sit down for a chat, and here he is. On the Gold Coast, Joe Esposito, welcome to Australia on Australia Day.
Well, thank you very much. It's a lot of fun being here.
Man, I don't even know where to start with you, seriously. It's like a billion stories or more, but tell me how it all started. Like, you grew up in Chicago, or you were born there?
I was born and raised in Chicago from an Italian family. My family's from Italy, but I was born in Chicago. And I got drafted in the Army in 1958, which I got drafted when I was only 20 years old.
Scary, right?
It was scary. It really scared the hell out of me. And I thought, well, my life is over here. So I go in the Army, and about 2 weeks later, Elvis Presley gets drafted in the Army. And I go to Fort Hood, Texas for basic training. He comes there. I didn't meet him there. I saw him around the base periodically because the press was always following him every place he went. So I didn't want to bother him. So then I go to Germany. I go to Friedberg, Germany, outside of Frankfurt, at Combat Command C, outfit there. And he came over there a couple weeks later, too. So he's following me every place I'm going all of a sudden, right? So I see him around the base there, but I didn't want to bother the guy because, I figure, so what happened?
He was a big star then, right?
Oh, yeah. He made 4 movies by that time. He was #1 in the world and amazing. He got drafted right at the heart of that. So, and so what happened is the photographer in the Army, it was hard to take pictures for the Army to promote the Army, right? Well, he became friends with Elvis, but he was a friend of mine, too. So one weekend he says, Joe, he said, listen, Elvis likes to play football on the weekends, and you need another player, a couple players this weekend. You want to come and play? I said, hell yeah, I'd love to. So that's what happened. He had a house he rented for his dad and his grandmother living in Bad Nauheim, which is very close to Friedberg. So he takes me over to Elvis's house, and I walk in the house. There's a bunch of guys in there, and he says, so Elvis comes walking to me as I come in the door. And he goes, hi, I'm Elvis Presley. Like, I didn't know who he was, right? You know what I'm saying? But that's the kind of a gentleman he was. Yeah. So I told him, Joe Esposito from Chicago and all that stuff. And he says, well, Joe, you're playing on my team today. And I said, great. So it was black T-shirts or white T-shirts. So I had the black T-shirt with him. He was the quarterback. Yeah. So we went over, we played for a few hours, all the buddies and guys, had a great time. And we all go back to his house to sit around, talk, have Coca-Colas, because Elvis didn't allow alcohol in his house. So we just sat around, talked, and he asked me about my life and this and that. And he said, well, Joe, any weekend, we're not on the field or something, you want to come and hang out, come on over. So that's how it all started. And, the amazing thing about it, the minute I shook his hand and I looked in his eyes, he had the smile on his face and in his eyes, I knew we were going to be friends. And from that point on, we became very, very close friends. I went to Paris with him on leave. I had a great time there, and that was the first time I was away from the base with Elvis, and the thousands of people walking down the Champs-Élysées were chasing us, and it was amazing. I thought, what world am I in here all of a sudden? So, but it was a lot of fun. He was the nicest guy in the world, and I tell people, once you meet this guy, you feel the charisma about him. He was the energy from him was just amazing. And that's why I think today, young kids and people, when they see him on TV or something like that, they fall in love with this guy. This guy's making 10 times more money now than he did when he was alive.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, if you had to explain to a younger generation, why we hear about Elvis, he was the king and all these things, but how would you explain it to a younger generation? I mean, what sort of his qualities that made him the most unique individual alive, right, for a while?
That's what I'm trying to say to you. Nobody could explain the attraction Elvis had to people. And let's face it, as of today, his record is still selling more. I have a lot of people. I met young kids that come and meet me when I was in Vegas, working in Vegas. They would just want to shake my hand. They'd be crying. I said, what are you crying about? She says, you knew Elvis. You shook his friend. You were his friends. And I said, yeah. I said, I was the lucky guy. She says, yeah. I said, well, but it still goes on today. And nobody can ever explain why.
Yeah.
They can't.
Yeah.
There's no explaining for it, but I think Elvis was given a gift from God, and always him, it bothered him too. He said, why me? Why was I picked to have this attraction to people? He could never figure it out. And I just feel it was something that was given to him in his life that nobody else will ever have again. And I don't think there'll ever be a star as big as Elvis.
And this is in a day before the National Enquirer, before all these like internet, before mass communication, and yet he was a global icon.
Oh yeah, a lot of foreign countries, remember, they couldn't even allow to play Elvis' CDs in those countries, in Russia and places like that. They were all being bootlegged over there in these foreign countries. The guys were paying a fortune for all this stuff. So, but it really makes me feel good, because here we are. He's been gone 31 years, it'll be 32 years this August, and we're here talking about him. Everybody interested in him, and that's one of the reasons I'm in this country right now too, because of Elvis.
Yeah, well, let's just talk about why you are in Australia, because there's some interesting things happening for you at the moment, isn't it?
Yes, it really is for me too. I met a gentleman named Brian, president of the Daiquiri Group here in Gold Coast here. And I met him at the Wynn Resort. I was a casino host there. I got on the elevator, and he was in the elevator, and he looked up, he says, "Are you Joe?" And I said, "Yeah." So we shook hands, because he's a big Elvis fan, naturally. So we met, and we talked, we became very, very close friends over the last 3 years. So I was here about last March. I was here. Brian has come over, my wife Martha and I, and we loved it here. We're only here for 2 weeks, and we've been talking. I was getting tired of being a casino host in Vegas, and he said, "Joey, so why don't you come to work for me?" I said, "Okay, sounds good." So here I am. Now I'm working for the Daiquiri Group and the Global Beverage Group. There are two groups together, and what Brian wants to do, he wants to try to get his pink vodka and Kronbacher beer that he has from Germany into Las Vegas. So I'm going to be over there trying to get distributors to really bring those products there. And I do know a lot of people, thank God, thanks to Elvis. And so it really helps a lot. And I love Brian and all those people he works with. He's a wonderful human being, and that's why we hit it off. And he loves Elvis. There's no two ways about it, man. He just idolized him. And that's why I'm here, and I love Australia. I really do. And I'm glad now I have more opportunities to come back and forth here, even though it's a long ride. 14 and a half hours from LA, but it's great. I love this country, the people. One thing about this country, it's like the old days in the United States, like back in the 50s. Everybody's nice. They're enjoying life. In the United States now, it's not the same anymore.
It's stressful.
Oh yeah, very, very stressful, especially now, what's going on in our lives over there too. But over here, people like to enjoy life. That's the problem over there. People worry more about other things than enjoying life every day. And that's why I like it here.